Now starting, all attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, hello, everyone, and welcome. We are so excited you could join us for today's special presentation hosted by Grace Hill. Today, you will hear from multifamily policy experts on the importance of having updated and accurate policies for business environment. We will begin shortly, but as we wait for others to jump on, I wanted to quickly walk you through the control panel on the GoTo platform. If you do not see the control panel, it may be minimized. You can hide the panel using the red arrow at the top, followed by your audio mute button and window docking and adjustment toggle below. Hopefully you have all joined with audio by this point, but if you have trouble or lose connection, don't worry. You can always switch to the phone call option to hear the audio that way. Lastly, don't forget to download the attached policy flyer in the handout section of the control panel, and feel free to submit those questions throughout the presentation using the questions box at the bottom. We'll answer them before we wrap up today. So let's get started. Welcome to our host, Chris Hill. Kristen has been an essential member of Grace Hill for 5 years, joining the team when Grace Hill acquired the Strategic Solution. With more than 30 years of experience in multifamily, Christiane has made immense industry contributions by aiding numerous companies in writing and managing policies and procedures. Maybe even some of you on this call today. She is currently the SVP of Content Strategy, where she is responsible for Grace Hill's policy content, supports the ever-changing needs of the real estate industry. That, I turn it over to our host. Welcome, Chrisanne.
Thank you, Kayla, and thank you all for joining today. Anyone who knows me knows that this is one of my favorite topics, particularly in multifamily, because when you work on site, as I did for 10 years, it's absolutely critical that you have easy access to policies and procedures so that you know what you're supposed to do in any given situation so that you can get back to the most important thing, which is leasing apartments and helping residents. So today's webinar is extra special because we're going to give away a fall box of goodies for one lucky attendee. That is right, one of you are going to receive this fun box of our favorite fall things, including a $25 Starbucks gift card, stainless steel coffee mug, a Grace Hill Nike pullover, which is the bomb. We will send it to you in your own size. You'll love it. Ray-Ban sunglasses, a warm fall candle, a cozy blanket, and much more. So super excited about that. Now I am pleased to introduce our presenters today. The first is Amy Cortez. She is our Vice President of Sales here at Grace Hill. Amy is a very experienced sales and operations leader who has over 20 years of service in various roles, which include Senior Vice President, Division Leader, and Vice President of Sales and Marketing. Amy is passionate about understanding her customers' needs and uses her business knowledge to help guide them to a solution that helps make a real impact on their business. Next, we have Jay Thompson, Senior Sales Engineer at Grace Hill. Having served as both a regional property manager for a national brand, as well as an account manager for Grace Hill's strategic accounts, Jay really knows what it takes to elevate property performance and reduce operating risk in multifamily. He now leads a team of multifamily sales engineers here at Grace Hill, and they focus on delivering the impact of Grace Hill's suite of solutions. And by the way, Jay used to be one of my customers, right, Jay? And when we did their policy manual meeting, they made these fun T-shirts that say there's an SOP for that. And that was one of my favorite meetings. We're also excited because Jay loves fall more than any person I've ever met, and he is always ready for a PSL. He's got his cup ready for us today, Jay.
Awesome.
Awesome. Well, I think we all have our pumpkin spice latte ready. I know I have my fall candle burning so I can get in that fall spirit. but I am so excited to really start today's webinar. I think our invitation related basic policies to black coffee, which some of you might like black coffee, but it's kind of an accurate description, right? But beyond the, the pleasures of having updated policies being that hot cup of coffee with your pumpkin spice creamer in it, we really wanted to share a stat about it, of why it's so important. So the statistic data does indicate that organizations that are implementing very well-defined compliance policies witnessed a 70% reduction in legal violation and associated policies. That's pretty significant. And while I love my pumpkin spice latte, I'm thinking that that statistic itself really kind of communicates how important today's topic and today's webinar. So we're going to start out with a poll because we want to understand where you are at in this process. So on the screen, you're going to see, would you describe your policies as up to date and mitigating risk? Is that a simple, yep, got it covered, no problem, I could be teaching this webinar? Is it, no, I need some help, or maybe you're somewhere in between? So we're going to give you guys just a few seconds here to reply to that. There's no shame in this. You can be honest. We're not going to call you out on it. We just want a real good pulse of where everyone is at right now. Okay, so we've got 12% of you saying, yep, got this covered. Great. We're hoping that you take something away from the webinar, even though we're going to talk about taking your policies from basic to, I'm going to call it sassy, right? Nope, you need some help. You do not have this cover. And a large amount of you, 70% is, somewhere in the middle. So that's a great overview of where we're focused at. Okay, so let's start there. Let's talk about the importance of policies. So Jay, I'm going to ask you, can you give me maybe a few situations in which you experienced when you were at the property level in which you needed quick, accessible policies?
Yeah, absolutely. And so I will tell you, Amy, that poll response just resonates with me, because I will tell you, when we came to Chris-Ann and really rolled out policies, we were definitely that 70%, right? We were somewhere in the middle. We had some policies that maybe lived in mines or binders, that type of deal, but it wasn't robust, right? And these were just a couple of the scenarios that I specifically remember, whether it was when I was truly on site or I had kind of moved up to that corporate and oversight level. But the first one I would just ask for all of our multifamily professionals that are on the phone is, how well does your team know how to perform a wellness check? So specifically, like, who performs that? I've been with some companies that it's law enforcement that you contact to, perform the wellness check. There's also been other instances where the leasing staff was, empowered to go do that. So my question is, though, and this was a real life experience, it was definitely one of my hardest days on site and one of the most unfortunate, but we had a wellness check and unfortunately we experienced a resident death. Do your teams know what to do in that circumstance? Do they know who to contact next? Do they know next of kin to contact? Even more importantly, what happens with the lease obligation? Who do they release the contents of that home to? And I will tell you again, and many of you have probably experienced this as well, but it is traumatic for your staff as well. So do they know what support resources are there for them? And all of these things really, when we began to look at a robust policy solution, these were things that we wanted to ensure that solution, encompassed. Next one, mold. So I'm here in the state of Florida. We often talk about, when I was having residents sign their lease, that in a tropical area, mold is rampant, right? But it's rampant throughout, multifamily in general. It can happen. So my question is there, do your teams know how to check for mold? Your maintenance teams, they get that service request and it says that they think that they have some kind of growth. Do they know what to do? Specifically, do they know the safety protocol, right? So not only for your staff, but what about for household members that are living there? Do they know what to do? And then just maybe a little rhetorical, although we won't call you out and ask you to put in the chat. If your teams encounter, let's say, a patch of mold that is 4 by 4 feet, who remediates that? I can tell you here in the state of Florida, the recommendation is that it's a licensed contractor. So again, do you open yourself up to any kind of litigation or risk there if your teams decide that they should be the one remediating that? Or do your policies give strict instruction as to where that goes? And then finally, again, I'm drawing on some Florida experience here, but we know Hurricane Lee is out there. I think thankfully it's not going to impact the US, but we just went through Hurricane Idalia, right? So do your teams know how to prepare for hurricanes or for natural disasters? For those of you that may have hurricanes in your area, do you know how to prepare your residents consistently across all of your assets? Do your team specifically know what to do during a watch versus a warning? Here's one of my favorite ones, and I remember doing it one way and then quickly learning the correct way. If you do have a storm coming, there's going to be high winds. Do you sink that pool furniture in the pool or do you not? And then specifically, what do you do post-hurricane, right? What if there's a fire hazard? What if there's a natural gas leak? What if there's utility outages? These are all the things that obviously your teams are encountering during any of these. And my question is, do they know the answer? And not the answer that they may think is correct, because that's no slight on them, right? Do they know the answer is dictated by your business and your day-to-day operations?
Well, those are three great scenarios, and what first comes to mind is you need to know a lot of things, and I have a lot of things at your fingertips. So, Chrisanne, you've been in the industry a long time. I'm sure you have seen some unique situations where someone maybe didn't have a very strong policy and found themselves in a situation. Can you share anything?
I do. I have two different situations to share with you today. The first one is where a customer called me while I was working at Grace Hill after having a balcony collapse during a party that a resident was having. And there were a lot of injuries and a lawsuit ensued. There was a big investigation, of course, and during that process, the customer was asked to provide their written policies, but unfortunately, they didn't have anything in place. Needless to say, it was one of the easiest sales I've ever done. They bought immediately, and our teams had their policies completed in less than 90 days. And then the other one was about 20 years ago. I was an on-site property manager, and I was part of a mentor program, and my mentee was a brand new property manager, and she was trying to get a hold of me. I was helping residents, and the team was saying, you need to call her immediately. She's got a big emergency. When I finally got to the phone, she was crying and said that the DEA had showed up. They were doing a bust on not just a regular resident, but a famous resident. And so there were news helicopters around everywhere. She did not know what to do. Our company actually did have written policies at the time, but they lived in a great big binder, and it was not easy to find them. And so during her panic, of course, as we all know in multifamily, the DEA waits for no one. They kicked the door down, terrified all the residents, and had she been able to look that up quickly, it was written down. But so another reason that it's important not only to have those policies written, but to keep them in a place where everyone knows and they can look them up and find them easily.
Wow, I think all those scenarios create a lot of urgency, right? A lot of things going on. So let's talk about, Jay, in your experience, what have you witnessed as it relates to property managers trying to get advice about a policy or situation when they just don't know?
Yeah, Amy, I think, the overarching theme here is that it's concerning, right? So I just thought I would go out there and pull some examples. So many of you on the call may be a part of these groups as well, but I am a member of some social media groups related to multifamily. And I will tell you in full transparency, there are many times that I read a question or I read some of the answers And it just scares me if I'm being completely honest, right? So I wanted to look at a couple of those. We chose anonymously. You'll notice I didn't put any of the comments because we wanted to make sure that it was anonymous, but let's talk through some of these. So here was one, right? And this one was, how do you handle qualifying people when they do not have income? For example, tenant 1 makes 3 times the rent amount. Tenant 2 has no income. Does tenant 2 need a guarantor? Is tenant 2 okay because they have a combined income, which is still more than 3 times? But here's an example. Dad works and mama stay at home. How do you handle this when qualifying the family? My question there is, if you notice, there were 12 comments. There was somebody that I would say it's a strong assumption that they were in this situation, right? But there were 12 people who weighed in. What I will tell you is if we were able to show those 12 comments, they were all over the place, right? And I immediately hone in on dad works and mom is a stay-at-home mom. That could be a familial status when we talk about fair housing, right? This is not an area that you want to take advice off of social media or have varying ways that you look through the lens. There should be a clear-cut direction there. Here's another one. This one definitely, as corporate, multifamily professionals on the call. If this isn't allowed, please delete. But if anyone knows anything about workplace retaliation, I have a few questions. Immediate red flag, right? There's potential litigation around that. Your SOPs should have strong language about anti-harassment, anti-retaliation, etc. And then let's look at one more. This one's scary because it had 54 different answers. And again, I can tell you it was across the board. But income's again on income verification, what you accept, things like child support, DoorDash, servers and bartenders that primarily work off tips, etc. And we can immediately focus on maybe state-specific protected classes or municipalities that look at like source of income and etc. So these are vital, and I would tell you 54 answers that again were across the board. So my question is, could one of these have been your team member, number one, and number two, could you have afforded for it to be one of your team members?
Wow, that's some sensitive information, right? And some sensitive questions. And I'm not sure any of us would want to go into a courtroom and say, hey, I got my advice off of Facebook, right? So definitely some risk there. But we're going to leave that alone for right now. So a lot of what we hear from people in the industry is kind of what Chris-Ann described. They've got a binder. It's at one location. Sometimes that binder gets copied into the other locations, but the policies don't get updated on a regular basis. And let's be honest, unless our full-time job is to update the binder, it probably gets put on the back burner. So let's discuss how maybe someone that's on the webinar today that has, those basic bare minimum policies and they're sitting in a binder or a folder, what's their options to get them updated so that they're protected and they're not asking Facebook for advice?
Yeah, so, Amy, I think let's talk first about, let's go back if you want to, about, let's say that hurricane, right? So one of the things that obviously we want to talk about today is our solution with Policy Partner. And what I love about Policy Partner is that it is on demand, right? It's that just-in-time learning. So again, we don't get hit with hurricanes, thankfully, every single day. In the moment, how do you get that information, right? So for us, that means ability to have this cloud-based platform that you can also come in and quickly search for answers, right? The good news is our search searches all of the text. So we're not just keying off of a title or something like that. We're looking for every instance of the word. So we touched hurricane here. It's mentioned 20 times in an SOP that is of the same title, right? The thing that I also love about our policy solution that really kind of takes it from that bare minimum and elevates it is the fact that they're easy to read. I will tell you, and I jokingly say this a lot to the people that we have the opportunity to meet with, you don't ever want me to write your policies. You can probably already figure out from this little webinar that we've been on now for 19 minutes, I'm a bit verbose. And policies should not be verbose. They should be easy to read. They should be succinct. And that's a definite skill level in and of itself. So another thing here is our policies are easy to read and succinct. In addition, we really try to minimize obstacles. So we provide links, whether that's to resources or even, to other policies. And I say this because let's be really honest in today's world. And that is, if we are looking up information, we want it readily accessible. If we then have to pivot and go dig somewhere else, a lot of time we've lost that moment in time. We've got another pressing instance or another pressing need that we just go ahead and pivot to, right? So if we can minimize that obstacles and give them all the information that they need, whether it's, again, links to other policies, links to resources, let's do that. And I think to your point too, Amy, when you talked about they may be outdated, is we also are going to tell them when it's last updated, right? So they know that this is the most up-to-date information. There's no really kind of confusion or worry on their part. So that's just some few examples. I know we're going to dig into a little bit more, but let's start there, if you will.
Yeah. And, I read a stat, and the stat said that it takes approximately 30 minutes for an employee to successfully track down a desired policy if it's located in a binder. Do you think that's accurate?
So I will tell you, I actually think that's super low. If we remember back that I just showed you that last updated section, the problem I think with the binders, or even let's say there's somebody today that doesn't have a binder. The company that I worked with, that Chrisanne helped us with, we had a couple of binders, but the majority of it lived with head knowledge somewhere else, right? So it was that seasoned manager, whatever it may be, in terms of that we're dealing with it. The problem with that is maybe I can find information in a binder, but I begin to doubt whether or not it's outdated. So then I immediately shift and go, okay, I'm going to call Chrisanne, who's been with our company forever. The problem is you all are busy, right? So the search begins with, do I have a policy? And then number two, if I do I think it's correct? So I go track down a subject matter expert such as Chrisanne, right? And again, she's busy. So it could be a full day, 24, 48 hours before they get back to you. And I would hazard to say that's if your teams reach out to the subject matter expert, right? Or do they go, hey, it's better to ask for forgiveness than permission type of deal, and go ahead and make a decision instead that, a best case scenario just kind of decreases your efficiency. At worst case, could literally potentially open you up to a lawsuit. So.
Yeah, all valid point. And really, as we were looking at that, we were really talking about one situation and one employee, right? And maybe that's not a huge issue for us, but you really have to think about when you multiply that number of employees and the frequency of policies that they're searching, that's really where the lack of efficiencies and time comes into play, because time is money, right? I love stats, as you'll know, as we go throughout this, but I really think that the data tells us where we should be focused. And so I read something the other day. It said it estimated that inefficiency costs at a company were 20 to 30% of its yearly revenue. And if you think about that for a second, 20 to 30% of your revenue, that's a big impact. And the other step that's kind of relevant here is that 69% of executives say that they are not confident that their current policies can meet their future needs or a lawsuit. So let's talk about what Grace Hill might have to assist all the folks that took the time to join today, that says, hey, we're somewhere in between. We don't have nothing. We don't have spectacular. What can they do to tune things up and protect themselves?
Yeah, absolutely. So let's first talk about what we offer in terms of policy creation that is out there for you. So number one, there is a digital catalog available to you. I believe somebody is going to drop that in the chat, and somebody just did, but let's take a look at it, right? Because this is what I'm so proud of. So right now, if we talk about policies, we have close to 800. I think the last count was 770 total policies. And it is across all of your different markets, right? So for example, for our developer friends out there, there's a construction manual. We developed that in partnership with a well-known development firm out of New York and got some great insight, right? For our student housing friends, which obviously have their own set of needs and ways that they operate their business. We have student leasing and marketing, management and maintenance, because that all important turn season that you all just came out of, let's really make sure that we can streamline it and make it efficiency. For tax credit, which we know at the end of the day has a lot of regulation around it and things that have to be done. We have a full tax credit compliance as well. You know, and one of the things that I think we sometimes overlook too is for our mixed use properties, right? That maybe we've got some multifamily, but we've also got a commercial entity to it as well. We do have full commercial ops as well. So really designed to support the entire, you know, multifamily real estate sector and the needs that our clients are going to have.
So I'm gonna throw a curveball at you. I think you said 770 or something very similar to that. How long would it take someone to build that?
Good question. So I'll be honest, I went to our policy SME, so shout out to Angie Stevens if she is on the call. And Angie and I talked through this. So Angie said on average, when we are creating a policy, it takes 6 to 12 hours, right? 6 is on the low end. Maybe there's not a lot of research that has to be done around it. 12 is that really robust policy that maybe has, you know, potential litigation around it, or it's got legislative regulations, et cetera. So let's take of that 6 to 12, let's just take the median, right? So 9 hours. So 9 hours to create a policy. And what I want to say about that is that's research, but that's also writing a well-written policy. It's making it succinct. It's closing the loop and making sure that it is not confusing. And trust me, that is a skill set in and of itself that, if we're being quite frank, not everybody has, right? Again, you would not want me to write your policies. So 9 hours, the big 4 that I typically see people work through, which is leasing and marketing, management and ops, maintenance, and emergency procedures. That right there, those big 4 is 211 policies. So 211 policies times 9 hours is almost, it's just shy of 1,900 hours. Now let's assume, again, that all you're gonna do in your day-to-day is work on policies. That's 48 weeks. It's almost a full year. And that's if you're doing nothing from 9 to 5 but crafting policies. And I know you all out there, you're juggling multiple hats. So you're not going to do it. I will tell you, we worked with a client who said, hey, y'all, in full transparency, I've been working on policies for 4+ years, right? And the problem is now, by the time you get around, so let's say you are doing that for 48 weeks, by the time you finally finish week 48 and you're like, we are done, those week 1 and 2 policies are probably now out of date, and you need to go back and take a look at it. It's a vicious cycle, right? And, you know, I just kind of related before I turn it back over to you, Amy, like, what is the value of your time, right? Not only in business dollars, so in economic impact, but also in your ability to support your team with your other day-to-day needs. And so, again, that's another reason why we are thrilled to partner, and I consider it a high honor to be able to assist our clients in that way.
Yeah. So you said 48 weeks. That's almost a full year for 211 of them, but we give 770 policies. So that's 2 years, 2.5 years. So yeah, powerful. Wow. Okay. So now that Jay shared that stat and we kind of talked about it in terms of hours, I'm pretty sure there's people on the call that are going to say, I want to buy this right now. So you can just go ahead, drop that in the chat, and we'll make sure we get a contract over to you. But in all seriousness here, so we work with a lot of professionals like Chris-Ann and Jay with lots of knowledge about multifamily and just all of the Grace Hill family companies that we work with. And really the major concerns that we hear are outdated, and there's a huge risk with that, right? Maybe some of the policies that they have right now are not industry specific. They're just generic ones, and they're really not going to help the team when they're in that crisis. They're not readily available. That's a huge risk, right? All the time that maybe they're trying to find it. Incorrect language. You know, they don't have maybe the right language. They don't have the combination of what our policies are and the specific things that we need to do. And there's a lack of partnership with, somebody to have that ongoing updated new content, kind of as what Jay talked about. So those are the things that we hear primarily when we're working with customers. So let's do a poll and let's see where everybody's at right now. So where do you see your biggest risk as it relates to policies? And that's the 5 that I just kind of talked about that we see and that we hear the feedback most on. So again, we're not going to call anyone out. We're not going to shame you. We want this to be helpful for you just to say, hey, here's really where I'm struggling. And if you're not struggling, if you're a pro on that, great. Let us know that as well after the webinar. We love to have conversations with those of you who have got great policies. So we'll give you just a few more seconds here. Okay, so if we can share the results. There we go. So 55% says outdated. I'm sure that's frightening for a lot of you. 7% it's not industry specific. 33% says not accessible. 19% is incorrect language. And 76% has that lack of ongoing updates. Pretty powerful things there that you guys are trying to solve on your side. So Jay, based on that polls and any feedback that you might have on that, can you show us how Policy Partner could assist with all of those concerns, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So we definitely covered some of this earlier, but let's recap it. And Amy, if you could just give me a verbal, you are looking at my Policy Partner screen at the moment?
Yes.
Perfect. Yep. All right, good. So let's talk a little bit about it, right? So again, this is our Policy Partner solution. It's going to show the manuals that you've subscribed to, right? So again, it is a cloud-based platform. It is totally accessible via the web. So again, when we talk about accessibility, right, which is one of the things, 33% said not easily accessible, your teams can get to it literally at the drop of a hat. Also, if you happen to be a partner with us on the learning management side, Edge to Learn clients, Grace Hill clients, this partners really well within your learning management system as well. So it's really great there, right? One of the things I want to call out here is this pending policies, right? So for example, this pending policies, 76% of you said lack of ongoing updates and new content. Now, part of that is going to be a lift on your teams, right? You're going to need to update your policies as they come around. So as maybe your property management system releases a new report, or you've decided to update your income qualifications. But I'm going to show you in a minute how easy it is to do that. But one of the things that we're really proud to partner with you is that we are constantly releasing new materials. So I went and looked 2022 alone. We released 43 new policies and 58 new forms for our mutual clients. We drop that into a pending policies manual because we never want to make an assumption that you want us to automatically update your policies, right? So we put it in there that you can readily publish it out. It also gives you an opportunity to go in and make sure that it fits your business needs. So if you need to customize it as well. We're also constantly monitoring. I am fortunate enough internally to be able to see our legal monitoring channel. We are actively monitoring 13 potential legislative updates. Now, when I say 13, some of those are going to require multiple updates, right? So we know there's a blueprint out there right now that is in strong conversation, and that's actually going to trickle down to much more than just 13 touch points, if you will, but 13 different touch points that we are monitoring for potential changes that we would need to pivot. One of the things I'm most proud of, again, I reside here in the state of Florida. Florida now has a human trafficking requirement. State auditors are actively out there. We released a human trafficking policy for our partners that may have had Florida assets so that you could be covered in regards to that as well. But as we go on, let me tell you a couple of the other things, right? So search, right? Again, this is going to get into that accessibility. But let's go back to that hurricane example. So they can come in here, again, quickly search. Remember, we are searching all text and titles. So they're going to get a really robust search result there. As we talked hyperlinking, right? So here we can hyperlink out to websites, to preparedness checklist, etc. That's going to make sure, again, that it's industry specific, that there are things that are really there to meet the needs of your team. It's also going to make sure, again, that it's up-to-date information. As we look to, we provide great things such as deep links, right? So if you are a partner with us on the learning management side, this is again where we really talk about industry specific information, right? So we can deep link out to hurricane preparedness courses. Let's layer on and make sure that we are rounding out kind of the full education of your teams. There's the ability to add resources, so file downloads, all of that's available, right? So that's really going to have hit on, again, making sure that they are industry specific, that they're accessible, and that type of deal, and new content. But let's deal with that 19% and 76%. So specifically when we talk about it not being specific, that the incorrect language or the updating, right? So here's how quickly it is to literally update your policies in the system. I can click in. I'm just going to add really quick an example. So there is test. Oops, and I apologize. I think my screen just stopped sharing. Let me reshare that. All right, there we are back. So I was able to go in and quickly make that test update. And now that's all you got to do is save, and that's live for your end users. But probably one of the other things that I want to highlight here is the ability to track your versions and all of your changes across your content. Because we do know that if you ever are in litigation, one of the things they're going to ask is, what was your policy and what was it at the time of the incident? So now you're easily able to go back and look at those things as well. And that's really part of that partnership that we are proud of. Unfortunately, multifamily can be litigious, and I will tell you this is a feature that has time and time again been used by our clients to really help them mitigate that risk when those type of issues arise for you. Last thing that I kind of want to point out for you is really what the mobile experience is. So I will tell you, this is a screen grab of my actual phone. The thing that I love about it, it is a fully mobile responsive experience. So your maintenance teams, right? The number one, don't love being in front of the computer. They can quickly come in here and get the information they need, right? It is truly just-in-time learning, right? Your teams, if they do encounter a 4x4 mold patch, they don't really have the time to go back and look it up in a laptop or on a desktop, make that. But they do have the ability to pull out their phones, know immediately what your business case is for those situations and how we can mitigate that risk, get your residents happy, which is all a trickle down, right? Happy residents, then renew, we stay on top of your income and ultimately your NOI.
Yeah, I can see where that would be extremely helpful for people who are not in front of a computer, right? To have it right there on your phone. You're walking to a resident site, you need to know about mold. You can pull it up right then and there. So definitely an advantage. So we're going to do another poll. This is the third one. We like to keep you engaged because we know sitting and listening sometimes gets boring, and we don't want you to be bored. So now that you have seen maybe a different way of managing policies, let's take another look at where do you see yourself based on a scale of 1 to 5. So 5 being the most confident and 1 being the least confident. So where do you think your policies are today? So yes, we kind of asked this question at the beginning, but it's also more just very specifically defined in, are you confident in them? So we'll give you just another second here. Again, we're trying to keep you awake and you engaged to hear all this awesome stuff that Jay is sharing.
It's a great time to take a sip of pumpkin spice, I'm just saying.
Oh, I missed my opportunity. All right, so we've got people right in the middle. It goes kind of into, yep, we're somewhere in the middle. We've got some, not the others. I can see a fit of where it's at. And kind of as we go into the next topic here, we hear a lot of people say, well, we're not really sure if, policy partner, a partnership with Grace Hill is a good fit for us, for our size of business. And so one of the things that we wanted to really talk about is we do have a solution for every single customer. So whether you're very, very small, we have what's called a small business solution. So if you're under 500 units, you're probably going to need policies just as much as someone who's got 50,000 units, right? And so we want to make sure that there's an offering for you. It's 36 policies, and it just gets you started of where you need to be on some of the most critical things. We also have something that's called essentials, which is maybe you don't need a deep dive of everything right now today, but you need something to get you started. It has about 75% of our most commonly used policies, and so that's always a great place to start. We have the no customization. I just want to get started. Here's the 4 things I'm interested in, and we certainly have a way to get you quick started. And then the model that we really fully support and really, really want to partner with you on is on the customization. Us becoming that SME with you, really helping you and guiding you on how to merge maybe some things that you have best practices into a really customization of what it is. I think, Chris Ann, when we've talked over the past, you have an interesting story here about why customization is so important and engaging with our teams of professionals.
Yes, the teams that we have in place, our implementation teams, are very skilled at this. They have been doing this for 20 years. We have on the team writers who, and as I always say, they know where the comma belongs. So any of you grammar nerds out here are familiar with the Oxford comma, which is also known as the serial comma, is extremely important because the omission of said Oxford comma can really create confusion. So here's an example with I had eggs, toast, and orange juice. That's with the Oxford comma, but remove the Oxford comma, and now toast and orange juice have a closer association than the writer intended. So now you've had orange juice poured on your toast. Case in point, there was a lawsuit several years back, and we called it, you can Google the $10 million Oxford comma, and it will come up on Google. It was a lawsuit, O'Connor versus Oakhurst Dairy, where they were not paying their drivers for overtime. And it was because the way the law was written had left out that comma, the serial comma. So it was the statute says workers who do not get overtime are those involved in, quote, the canning, processing, preserving, freezing, drying, marketing, storing, packing for shipment, no Oxford comma, or distribution of perishable foods. So with the elimination of that one comma, what they did was they made it to where the people who were delivering the food were supposed to get overtime pay. That had not been done for 4 years. And so the company was made to back pay 4 years of overtime in the total amount of $10 million. So that being said, if you think you can write your policies yourself, I would take a look at that option again, because it's easy to make those mistakes.
Wow, I'm glad we have professionals, because I'll be the first to say I have no idea where the comma goes.
Most people don't. Most people don't. So, and that's all these people do, and they are so good at it.
Yeah. All right, great. Well, we have shared a lot with you today, and hopefully you can relate to something. Maybe something basic that you had in place is no longer fitting. Maybe something that's, in the middle, not awesome, not great, need some enhancements. Maybe you found some ways or some data as to why it's so important to put a focus on it for the remaining of this year and into 2024. So I think this is the fun time, and I have seen some questions come. So let's start with some questions.
Okay, I'm having these questions sent over to me, and the first one is, What if we need a revamp of our current SOPs? We are a longtime customer, but have had a lot of changes in software and products. That's very common. We are overwhelmed to knowing where to get started. We are going one by one as we come across change. Our teams can help you with this. It is a simple statement of work. We have done this for a number of customers, particularly those who've been with us a long time, because as we talked about, your policies can grow outdated if you don't stay on top of them continuously. So if that is you, I would encourage you to reach out and we can give you a quote for that. And we typically do those in approximately 90 days or less. The next question is, do you have any policies for 55 plus senior living apartment communities? We do not have policies that are specifically tailored for 55 plus senior. However, the existing template policies that we have are fairly applicable and can be easily modified by the implementation team to help those policies fit your community. And particularly if you are a management company that manages different types of communities, you'll want to have the majority of your policies that apply across all of those to be the same, and then they can help you break out the specifics for the 55 and over.
And Chrisanne, I would just add to that too. I know that some of our existing client bases have 55 plus communities already. So, the fact is they are able to currently use our policy solution for that market segment as well. So,
absolutely. This last question, I think Jay kind of touched on it when he was talking about what we monitor. How long does it take to see updates in these policies when new rules are released? Rules don't just happen overnight. So we are always watching. And we're not just watching the legislation, we are watching the trends. I am today at the National Multi-Housing Council fall meeting. There is a lot of talk around industry buzz and particularly around supporting the needs of renters and to creating affordability. And so we have already actually mapped out our policies and our training to align with the foundations for rental housing. So we will not be surprised, and we always make the target. As soon as the law goes into effect, we have our material ready. Let's see, here's another one. Do I have the ability to link policies to third-party systems that we use? Example, I want to link a mold policy for my maintenance staff to have on hand within their maintenance system. I'm going to let Jay answer that question because it's a technology question.
Yeah, so
I'm a content person.
Yeah, there's definitely some ways that we can enable that for you. We have some things called direct linking that we can 100% show you how to do and link that in. I think the other beautiful thing about our system is, again, if you're part of our vision, or excuse me, that's an internal dialogue, learning management system, these things link really well and there's access points there. But if you are not a learning management client today, 100% we have access points for you that can live virtually anywhere. They can live on your intranet, they can live, on your HR system, whatever it may be. And that is a great example of, hey, we've got a maintenance system that maybe lives outside. We could create a URL that could live there. It basically provides a single sign-on experience for them and could drop them into the content that's just related to your maintenance teams. Or like I said, we can also teach you how to direct link specific policies, maybe not even a manual, to that. So 100% we can help you figure out that as well.
Okay. Here's another one. I love all these questions. Our existing policies got intermingled with software procedures / instructions, but we want to pull those out. Are you able to assist with that? Yes. We always recommend that you do not mix your policies and procedures with your software instructions, and our team is very skilled at pulling those out.
Yeah, I think it's important too, if I can add on to that, Chris, saying we've got those manuals that we showed you all, but we 100% can even set up what we call shells, right? Which are manuals outside of the others. So those could be great places to also be to house those. So again, just a variety of solution. I think the one thing we are most proud of here at Grace Hill is the ability to say yes, right? So let's figure out what those needs are and how we can best serve those.
Okay, I do not have any new questions at this point. So we are going to go ahead and wrap that up. So I want to talk about the giveaway slide. So we are going to use a random picker. Oh, by the way, back to your questions. If you have a question later, you can reach out to us and we can answer any questions that you might have. So our winner, which is chosen by random by a picker from randomlist.com. So the winner is Beverly R. Very exciting. So congratulations, Beverly R. We will reach out to you later today to get your contact information so that we can mail you your prize.
All right.
And then we're going to talk now about our next webinar. So if you liked this webinar, you're going to love our next one. This is Mastering Your Pink Shoes, Exploring the Power of Emotional Intelligence for Achieving Greater Success and Fulfillment with Alex Howard. And I have been privileged to sit in her sessions. She is engaging, she's funny and compelling. So don't miss the next webinar, which is on September the 28th at 2 p.m. Eastern.
Awesome. I think we are going to talk about, I saw a couple people chat, hey, call me, I need pricing. So this is in here for you and for anyone else that is considering policy partners. So we are having a promotion. If you sign a contract by the end of the month, this is a September only promotion. We are delaying all payments until 2024. And so truly, if you are thinking about getting started, there's absolutely nothing you have to pay in 2023, and it would all be delayed to 2024. So we hear a lot of people saying budget restraints until 2024. This will help you get started, help you to start mitigating risk right away, and start working with our implementation team so that you can get started right away. So now's a great opportunity to jump on board. So everyone who did put questions in chat, I do see some still coming in here, so we will answer your questions directly. If you put in there that you want pricing, we will have someone follow up with you absolutely immediately after this and make sure that everything is answered. Okay, so if you want to directly follow up or connect with Jay and I, you can follow us on LinkedIn, or you can send us an email and give us a holler. You also can scan the QR code here that will take you into more information to help you get started with that right away. Okay, we are at the end of our webinar, so we hope that you found this very beneficial. If you want to put in the chat or in the questions, help me now, we will make sure that we follow up with you priority, and that just means, hey, I want to get started right away. I did see that people were asking if we could get the recording to them because the decision maker that they need to send this to could not be here, and we absolutely will provide that for you. So we hope you had a great time. I know we did. We always enjoy talking about this stuff. I love the stories. I love the stats. I hope you do too. So congratulations to the lucky winner. I'm super jealous of that white pumpkin candle that I saw in the picture. I've been trying to find it. They're sold out here where I live, so trying to find that white pumpkin. But until the next time, guys, goodbye. Thank you so much for joining and have a wonderful fall and a wonderful day.